In fact, the first time that Jesus seems to refer to himself as a God is in the book of John.
In this recent video by Christy Burke, she states that the early Christians did not think that Jesus was God and that this was a later development. She claims that the Synoptic Gospels don't depict Jesus as referring to himself as God and that this only shows up later in John. This claim and everything else in her video is wrong and simply ignorant of New Testament scholarship. First, Christy is essentially just parroting what she has read in Bart Ehrman's book, How Jesus Became God, and she apparently does not know or does not care that Ehrman's claims on this topic have been responded to and I think refuted by New Testament scholars. For instance, the book How God Became Jesus is a collection of essays by scholars refuting the claims made in Ehrman's book. What follows is a sample of some of the issues with the ideas she expressed. First, it's simply false that Jesus was not considered God in the Synoptic Gospels. Mark has the same high Christology that John does. To give a thorough treatment of this book to give a thorough treatment of this topic would literally require writing a book, so I'll just give a few examples. All throughout the book of Mark, Jesus refers to himself as the Son of Man. For instance, in Mark 14:60-64, we see Jesus refer to himself using this title in his trial with the high priest. Son of Man is a figure that is depicted in Daniel chapter 7 and the book of Enoch. Most importantly, the Son of Man is a divine figure. We see this in Daniel 7 when he is described as riding on the clouds, which was a common sign of divinity in the ancient world. We are told that he will be worshipped and served as only God is and given an eternal kingdom. Similarly, in 1 Enoch, the Son of Man is described as existing with the Father before the creation of the world. And guess what? This is why immediately after Jesus says this, the high priest tore his robe and said, "We don't need any more witnesses. You have heard this blasphemy yourself." They understood the claim that Jesus was making when he referred to himself as the Son of Man here. All throughout the book of Mark, we see Jesus performing actions which communicate his divinity. We see him forgiving sins in Mark chapter 2, which is something only God has the authority to do. The Jewish authorities recognize that only God has the authority to do this and accuse Jesus of blasphemy because of this. We see Jesus rebuking the wind and waves in Mark 4:39, which is something we are told Yahweh does in Psalm chapter 89:107. Jesus raises the dead, and we are told in Ecclesiastes 8:8 that no man has the power over the day of death. Jesus doesn't just say he is divine with his Son of a Man claims. He regularly says it with his actions. It is at this point I will note that we don't have to just look at the Gospels to see the early Christians' view of Jesus. Paul's letters are earlier than the Gospels and continually show Jesus as being equal to Yahweh. Paul regularly applies Old Testament texts about Yahweh to Jesus. For instance, in Romans 10:9-13, we see Paul cite Joel 2:32, which is about Yahweh, and applies it to Jesus. More texts such as these can be seen in David Cape's work, Old Testament Yahweh texts and Paul's Christology. I'll conclude by noting that the weight of evidence shows that Jesus was worshipped as divine from the very start of the Christian movement. Larry Hurtado, in his book, One God, One Lord, Early Christian Devotion and Ancient Jewish Monotheism, describes a high Christology of Jesus as being extremely early, easily within the first decade of the Christian movement. In conclusion, Bart Ehrman is simply wrong and Christy is simply wrong.